Alright, hello everyone, my name is Shep, welcome back to the Butcher's Circus. Today we are going to be watching a match between myself and a random assortment of numbers. So this is a player I've played against before, they are quite good, and they are playing Shep Stress number 3. So it is the Shep Stress variation with the Grave Robber in the back. So we haven't seen that one in a while, so that should be a pretty fun matchup here, because today we're playing something that's actually entirely new to this channel. I haven't played with it before. It's called the Iron Dog team. So this is named by the Chinese community, and it's essentially called the Iron Dog because it has a very tanky doggy in the backline. He has the maximum amount of dodge and he can guard and give himself protection, so he's not as weak against repulse as other doggies would be. He's the Iron Dog, right? So, the idea behind the team setup that we have here is that we actually have kind of a hit squad frontline between the Crusader and the Flagellant, but then instead of having a Bounty Hunter and an Arbals, we just bring a Man-at-Arms and a Houndmaster, so instead of being a Mark team, it's a Stress team. So we do have a lot of things going for us, of course, with this front line. So you might be asking, well, Shep, why is the Crusader in position 1? Why does this look so weird? Why is the Flagellant in second? Well, the reasoning behind this actually makes a lot of sense in the Stress team. With Hit Squad, I prefer to run the Crusader in second because I like having my punishes and I don't really mind too much if the Crusader goes to positions 3 and 4, because I can just Holy Lance and everything will be perfectly fine. But in this situation, you really don't want to be dropping Holy Lances with your Stress Crusader, you want to be dropping Zealous Accusations. So you're going to keep the Crusader in position 1, so he can do those Zealouses for a hell of a lot longer. So in this matchup that we're playing here, we're going to have a little bit of a rough time, because we don't have any sort of disruption to deal with that Abomination at the moment. So that is a little bit rough, and our Crusader is already getting focused down, so we did not eat a crit from that, but it's not the end of the world. So my opponent here does have Reclaim on the Flagellant rather than the Reign of Sorrow, so I was quite happy to see that. That gives me a very big advantage. At the same time, Reclaim could be kind of bad for me if it is applied on the Grave Robber and she makes use of all her dodge. That could be bad news for me, but it's not the end of the world. So yeah, in terms of trinkets, just double dodge on the Houndmaster. On the Man-at-Arms, it's kind of a mix and match between whatever you want to pick. Honestly, I feel like Numbing Instance and the debuff trinket is perfectly fine, though you could also just bring Pit Fighter's Helm with a debuff trinket and you'd be fine as well. Flagellant, of course, going to have Call to the Absolution, and the Crown of Thorns actually, so you aren't forced to drop the command buffs, and then the Crusader is actually going to have Sacred Blade and Zealous Accusation. Sacred Blade is quite good because in some matchups you really want to get a stun off against the enemy Crusader round 1, for example, and Zealous Accusation is good as well because, you know, it's a stress team. You have to drop Zealous, and Writ of Execution really helps with that. So in terms of this Flagellant here, now I have a choice. I can either go for Punish or I can go for Reclaim. The thing is, my Crusader is screwed. He's absolutely screwed. He is going to be eating blights left, right, and center. I can't guard him. I can't really defend him too well. I could have dropped a Reclaim right there, but honestly, at this point, he's just gonna eat way too much DOT. Keep in mind that I did fail the Punish Bleed on the Abomination. I was quite unhappy about that. I got Curse of the Spike Bat, so that's what happens when you don't bring the Spike Bat, when you bring the Crown of Thorns instead, but, you know, what can you do about it? So now I'm gonna drop the Bolster, so I take just a little bit less stress. In hindsight, maybe dropping a Holy Lance immediately onto the Abomination would have been better, but I just felt like giving myself a little bit more of a dodge chance if it could hopefully work. And I can also just go Holy Lance onto the Grave Robber after her crit buff wears out, so she has just a little bit less dodge. She's a very important character for the team that my opponent has here. So now more blights are applied, and yeah, my Crusader, like, there's literally nothing I could do to save him. I could have dropped Reclaim, maybe, but he would still be eating a lot of DOT. After I drop Reclaim, he's going to be eating even more DOT from another Panic Darts. There's Beast Smile, there's just so much nastiness that he's not going to survive here. If he did go Courageous, then maybe he could survive for longer, but that's only a 30% chance of even going Virtuous, much less getting the actual Courageous Virtue, right? Not that I feel like that a Virtue should exist, even, because it's completely broken, but, you know, such is the way of the Butcher's Circus. Now my Crusader, he's feeling really bad here. Normally when you have a character focused down with this team, you can kind of just guard them, either with the doggy or with the Man-at-Arms, probably with the doggy, because the doggy does like having that big amount of dodge, but in this situation against the guard break, there's literally nothing you can do. The Abomination just completely counters the Crusader here, and it is quite a rough situation for us. There's going to be another Panic Darts now. My Crusader is going to be at 0 HP. He's just having a terrible time. He does have a command buff, So even at 0 HP, he's going to be quite likely to actually just hit the Holy Lance on my opponent, so that would be quite good. And he goes abusive as well, so he might actually do a lot of damage, even at this door. Let's see if that is actually a possibility. So it's only round 2, but I already have a character getting completely demolished here, because when you play against Chef Stress number 3, with the Grave Robber, that is actually a possibility. Having a Grave Robber with Panic Darts means that a character can be focused down. And focused down this Crusader was, and at this point it's a 3v4 and I don't have any massive advantages. Well, the Grave Robber is low on HP. Honestly, every character is kind of low on HP compared to mine. Mine are all in tip-top shape, but at the same time, I don't really have too much pressure going. I need to stack more pressure. The biggest problem with this team is that you can see that its stress output is definitely lacking. A stress team without an Abomination lacks on the stress output considerably. Not having that transformation horror is just really, really bad, but you know, you have other strengths for it, obviously. And of course, the doggy is fully defensive, the man-at-arms is defensive. It's really quite a weird team to play with. The Flagellant doesn't have Reign of Sorrows either, so your offense is considerably lacking if the Crusader goes out, which is exactly what my opponent did. They noticed that the biggest threat was actually the Crusader, they took him out. And now I'm in a rough spot. So here I guard the Man-at-Arms because he's basically the one character that really doesn't want to eat Panic Darts right now. He can't resist the blight, he's gonna take a lot of DOT, it just wouldn't be too much fun. If I guard with the doggy, I'll have enough dodge to generally just prevent my doggy getting focused down too hard by those Panic Darts. It would be quite lucky to even hit it because it's a very low base accuracy ability. It's only at 95. Even with 2 accuracy trinkets in a command, it doesn't reach ludicrous amounts of accuracy, so you can definitely miss it against the doggy. So keeping my backline tight and putting the pressure onto my Flagellant instead, and I'll just be able to use the redeems and hopefully just get an advantage going from there. So my opponent here drops their claim onto the Abomination just to keep him alive and well, and now they can do just about anything. They could try focusing my Flagellant down here with a Transform Rage. They can try and just keep dropping those beast smiles. Hopefully they hit 1 or 2, and if they do get rid of the Crusader Corpse, they'll be able to hit the Man-at-Arms as they hit the doggy with the beast smile, so that's exactly what they're going for here. So now my guard still helps with that minus stress taken. You can see I have like, I don't know, like 8 horror on me and I'm only taking 2 because of the numbing instance, the bolster and the guard. It's stacked at like minus 80% stress, so it's not like you're gonna take 0, even if you have like minus 130% stress taken, but yeah, it's definitely noticeable, that minus stress. So here more command buffs that kind of tells me that my opponent is trying to hit my doggy, so I'm definitely scared here for him. I might have to guard twice if I do want to make sure I have a dodge chance, but now I drop a punish onto the Abomination. He should be at this door if my punish round 1 did apply, but you know, I have Crown of Thorns, so I do not have that nice, that sweet 120% bleed chance. So they do indeed fail that Panic Darts, I believe, even with 2 command buffs, so I was very happy about that. And then just dropping a Hound Sari to make sure my opponent does drop to this door. And all the characters are in a really, really rough shape. So what started off as a really bad match, losing my Crusader around 2, is not looking so bad anymore. It's not looking great either, because of course my opponent has a Flagellant and, you know, there's 2 health bars back up. But at the same time, it's not looking absolutely atrocious anymore. Of course, the Beast Smile is definitely here to make me rethink that, but hopefully I get a few dodges, and at the same time, it's only gonna start really hurting my characters in about 3 to 4 rounds, so it's not the end of the world if I get a few blights here. I just need to focus that Abomination down, I need to take a character out, and I need to make my opponent focus more on the defense rather than the offense, because once they do that, I'll be able to just pepper them up with Hound Saris and they won't be able to save everything, and if I get a character advantage back on, my characters are defensive enough to the point that they can basically win a 1v1, at least that's kind of the idea with this team. So I eat another Beast Smile from that Abomination, not getting a lot of dodges with the doggy anymore. I guess I did let one of my dodge buffs go away, but you know, my opponent obviously they know that I have all this dodge, so they're dropping all the command buffs they can. So here I go for another Harry, very important Harry. They're getting, I think, a double crit as well, so that means that the character on my opponent's side is finally go afflicted. It has been 5 rounds before we got an affliction on the enemy side, and that means that He's dropping down to 0. The men-at-arms is dropping down to 0. Now the Grave Robber will also be dropping down to 0. So this is almost like a DOT team if you look at it that way. So yeah, the men-at-arms is at 0, so a Houndsary with a death blow could be coming. The Grave Robber, I believe, doesn't drop down to 0 just yet, but she will drop very, very soon, unless there's a reclaim from the enemy flange, which is what is most likely. If you're playing Chef's Stress number 3, you have to keep the Grave Robber alive. She's the queen of your team, so if you just let her die, then, you know, why are you even playing that team, right? She has a lot of dodge, and she can definitely win the final 1v2s because Planet Dart just does so much freaking stress. So here I can either opt for a command buff or for a bellow. I'm thinking, you know, bellow could apply debuffs, which don't really do too much. It could apply a bit of stress, but it feels like stress isn't really a win condition at this point. I've just got to hit commands with my doggy. I've got to hit those Houndsarys, right? I got to hit the doggy with the commands so he actually hits those freaking Harrys. So I did think for a second there to actually change the guard around so my doggy wouldn't drop to Death's Door, but I ended up just deciding on, you know what, let's make it so my doggy just has more accuracy anyway. If I change the guard around, I just get panic darts on my flagellant, I mean on my men-at-arms, so it won't really change too much in the grand scheme of things, and I might also get death blowed by a beast file, but it isn't likely, but yeah. So here I get a bit of an idea, and the idea is to go Exsanguinate to heal my doggy back up, and to put an Abomination at 0. And how do I heal my doggy back up? Well, if you're at a very low amount of HP, you can hit an Exsanguinate onto a repulsing character, drop to Death's Door, heal your other characters because you dropped to Death's Door, and then heal yourself back up to like 24 HP with the Gauntlet of Absolution. So that's what I went for here, and it worked out pretty well. And it basically gave my opponents a choice. You can either keep your beast pile up and risk a double death blow, or you could heal yourself, but then you won't have repulse anymore. And they decided to just drop a command, so they would hit their beast pile, but they didn't. Their doggy, or their big doggy, just died immediately to the 25%. Now their backline is in tatters, my flagellant is still okay, and their flagellant has minus healing skills and is taking 16 bleed as of right now, so things are looking up for your shepherd doggy here, which is of course what I want, right? But yeah, the flagellant dropping to 0 HP does heal the other characters up a little bit, so they're not going to be dropping right now, and I get hit by a crit Exsanguinate for 15, which not only applies all the bleed, it also applies a blight, which means my men-at-arms, which is looking quite alright, is now immediately at Death's Door, which I was like, come on, you're not even gonna leave me 1 point of HP after that? Like, I took 15 damage plus 9 plus 2, I took like 27 damage there, 26 damage there, like from one Exsanguinate in 1 round. That's a DOT ability, that's not an ability that's supposed to one-shot you, but it's pretty much what it did. So here I think like, oh, I could drop a bell, I could drop another command buff. I just sung on the bell because I'm getting really close to those afflictions. I really want to get some afflictions going on my opponent's side, because that could be what turns the tide of the match. They might go irrational and pass once, and then that's just a GG for me. So that's really what I was looking forward to. So I think both players have dropped an Exsanguinate at this point, so do keep that in mind. We both still have at least 1 redeem, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure if I've used a redeem yet. I've definitely used 1 Exsanguinate. I think my opponent has used 1 redeem and 1 Exsanguinate, so I'm up in terms of that. So my men-at-arms survives a death blow, and my doggy does have 2 command buffs, so he should be able to hit. I do get the funny number on that Grave Robber, and I am able to hit her as well. So the men-at-arms is going to go afflicted, and if there's an act out, or if dropping to Death's Door causes stress, the Grave Robber will go afflicted as well, which is what I want. So he went abusive, didn't he? So that actually makes it so he has a chance of stunning other characters, which I would absolutely love, but he doesn't go for any sort of act out, not even stress. Like, come on. I was really hoping for something there, but sadly not yet at least. So here comes the command buff. This is definitely a neck and neck match. At this point I wasn't sure who's gonna win, because this is really gonna come down to the death blows and all that. My biggest concern here was that Grave Robber just staying alive way longer than she should, and then both my backline characters die. And after they die, I have to win a 1v2, which would be really difficult with a Grave Robber that has regen, has a lot of dodge. So hopefully that's not what happens here, but we haven't gotten inflicted yet, even with 2 characters jumping to Death's Door. So my men-at-arms goes down to a crit punish, which leaves me down to only 2 characters, so that's not too much fun. However, My opponent has blundered a 20% death blow chance on their flash. Sadly, I go for it, but I don't get the 20%, but at least that's one death store check. If this comes down to a 1v1 at the end, or something of the likes, the flagellant will be down one death store check, so that will give me superior win chances if it does come down to something like that. But of course, if I took the 20% there, I would have essentially won on the spot, because even if my doggy went down to the next panic darts, I would probably be able to win after just a couple punishes on the man at arms, and then all the grave robber would have would be picked to the face. So with just pick to the face, she wouldn't be able to deal stress to me at all, she wouldn't really be able to do too much damage, so Exsanguinate would kind of just win. Though it would probably miss, but with Crown of Thorns, it's a bit less likely that it does miss. So my opponent goes for a guard here, which I just say like, I mean sure, I'll punish you, I don't mind, I'll just get a crit punish on your man at arms as well, and that's exactly what I do here. Their man at arms is down and out from the match, and yes, I do have 2 Exsanguinates and I believe 2 redeems as well. I could have dropped a heal there immediately, but I felt like I had to get a death blow at this point. I don't want to drop an Exsanguinate too early, of course, because then I'll definitely not win the end game, and I do actually go afflicted here, which could be terrible. Rapturous isn't really something you want in a Rapturous versus non-Rapturous flagellant duel, because yours can always go for an Exsanguinate when he isn't supposed to, or he can go for a self-hit, which is really the worst thing. So here comes a punish. My doggy thankfully dodges, and that is a flagellant once again at death's door. So at this point I have a choice between going Blackjack and between going Houndsary. I end up going for a Houndsary, which I think was a mistake because it wasn't even confirmed hit chance. I felt like I wanted to kill the Grave Robber as well, but I could have genuinely just gone for a Blackjack, hope for a 25% stun, and even if I don't get the stun, I could have potentially gotten a crit, which would have made the chance a bit better. So my opponent goes absolutely wild, going for an Exsanguinate onto the Houndmaster, which is just greedy beyond belief. I don't know how much accuracy they had at that point, but it was definitely not a confirmed hit. They don't have Crown of Thorns. They have Hemlock instead, so I was quite sad to see that happen. And here I just drop a redeem because they healed, they got a crit heal on top, and I definitely want to drop my redeems before I'm unable to, so I'm just gonna do that at this point. Now, to take this Grave Robber out is going to be easier said than done because she has a lot of dodge, but to take my doggy out is also easier said than done because I also have a lot of dodge. Of course, my opponent has an advantage here because they have Shadow Fade, they have Panic Darts, and they have a Flagellant with more HP, and without an Affliction, right? But here I actually click, I go for a pass, which was really not what I wanted, because my opponent went Fearful, I believe, and they're not getting any passes. I went Selfish, and there was a pass, and they actually hit the Panic Darts somehow, despite only having one command buff and having a Death Star recovery, but you know, that's goodbye to my doggy, sadly. But thankfully I do hit this punish here, so right now, having the Crown of Thorns and the last character standing buff is really gonna help me out at taking this Grave Robber out, but it's still not even a confirmed hit chance, even with both of those, even with 125 accuracy. Fearful really helped my opponent out here, not giving a single pass as of right now. So my opponent drops a punish, which also applies a blight on top of the bleed, so it's gonna make it so I drop to 0 HP faster. But thankfully I'm not quite at 0 HP just yet. I'm gonna drop a punish, and I am unbelievably lucky to take that Grave Robber out with the first blow, and now it is down to a 1v1. So I believe my opponent only has one Exsanguinate left, while I have 2, which is obviously an advantage for me. I'm dropping to their store here, and I am just praying that my Flagellant doesn't die to the immediate Rapturous debuff hacked out, right? And I'm looking at it, but thankfully that doesn't happen. So one thing to keep in mind is Crown of Thorns gives you plus damage. I get a crit for 21 and get a bleed on my opponent, which makes it so my opponent is gonna drop down to 0 HP immediately from their entire health bar. I mean, I don't think it was their entire health bar, but it was close enough to their entire health bar. Of course, they also get a crit Exsanguinate back, but it doesn't matter all that much. As long as my punish hits really hard here, I will be able to drop them back down to 0, or I will just drop another Exsanguinate. Yeah, at this point, don't be the kind of crazy player that doesn't drop an exsanguinate because all the healing skills. Both characters are taking 30 bleed each round, so it doesn't really matter. Just drop the exsanguinates if you have heals. So here my opponent is dropping to death's door. They no longer have exsanguinates, they have to hit into a character that isn't into death's door, and they're 2 death door checks down because of all the chances that they took earlier. So what was looking like a terrible match from the start, losing a character round 2, has turned and twisted into something that was still quite bad and now is favorable for me, which, favorable is a very nice word. So I don't get an act out. Oh no, I do get an act out. Whose will is more righteous, says this FLAGELLANT. He goes for the punish, doesn't get the kill. That's 3 death door checks onto the enemy flange, and now they're down to 45% death door resistance. They're gonna go for the punish. At this point you can imagine how much I was sweating, because each punish that I don't get is a punish that my opponent can get me. So they don't get the 10% death vote chance. I am gonna go for the 55 now, which I do not take. You can see the mouse is wiggling all over the place. I am getting seriously stressed out here. That's 4 attacks on my opponent, and I have not taken them out yet. And of course, they get the 25% death blow because there is no justice in this world. You can imagine how unhappy I was with that outcome right there. Just absolute craziness. Immediate message from my opponent, I think saying GG or whatever, but yeah, just 10% into a 25, while I fail a 20, a 35, and a 55, I believe. Or no, it was even more than that. I failed a 20 and a 35. Then I failed at 25 and I don't even know anymore. Just too many. 4 attempts, they got it a second. Just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, anyway, big GG's to my opponent. Hope y'all enjoyed today's match. This was absolutely a crazy one. And I'll see you again another time. Cheers.